Welcome back to the Stuff About Money They Didn't Teach You in School podcast. I am your host, Erik Garcia, certified financial planner. I am flying solo as host today because Xavier is not with me because I failed in telling him about this recording. Yep, I will own it, and he will give me a hard time when he's on next show. But I am joined by my friend here, Vinnie Allard. Vinnie is going to be talking about 401ks today and a lot of changes that are coming down the pike. So, Vinnie, welcome to the Stuff About Money podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Longtime fan, first time caller here. So I'm looking forward to being a guest.
All right. Long time listener. I don't listen to radio anymore, so I forgot how that goes, right? First time caller. That's how it goes,
right?
Something like that. So real quick background, Vinnie is, you're the director of Advisor National Accounts at Human Interest, a technology forward retirement benefit platform focused on providing affordable automated 401k, 403b. You're in the retirement plan space. That's what people need to know. Okay.
Yes.
Right. Professionally, that's what you do. But for fun, I'm sitting here looking at the camera and I see behind you a really cool, is that a road bike? No, it's not a road bike, is it?
Road bike, gravel bike, all kind of does the same thing. But yeah, big into cycling over here.
And is that a snowboarding helmet back there too?
No, that is actually my downhill mountain biking helmet. So that's for when we're lift access, hitting some jumps and in the dirt. So a little bit of everything. Full blown cycling nut.
So you're in Boston, the Boston area, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So do you do that? Do you do this in Boston, or do you
up in New Hampshire? So about an hour, same resorts that they do the skiing and snowboarding at. A lot of times in the summer, they're shifting to biking as it's grown.
Yeah, we don't have mountains in New Orleans. We have potholes that they're like inverted mountains, but you can't mountain bike in them. But anyway,
you guys do have drive-through daiquiris though. We don't have that.
we do have drive-through daiquiris in New Orleans. I think many of us would trade in mountains for drive-through daiquiris. That's right. Right. And hopefully the weather will start warming up here and we can you can get them now when it's cold, but daiquiris when it's warm are much better than daiquiris when it's cold. All right, Vinnie, what is one thing about money that you now know that you wish they would have taught you in school?
I put a lot of thought into this question because I was prepared for it. Listen to a few.
I can't catch anybody off by surprise anymore.
I know it's coming. After you talked to me about the podcast when we had met back in, I think it was November, I listened to it a little bit. And then when we scheduled this, I was like, okay, I need to have something good. And unfortunately, I feel like my answer is not all that original because I wish whether it was college, high school, whatever my finance classes were early on, that they taught more about personal finance and the impact of saving early. Because I think much like many others, I got into the trap when I got out of school of, okay, I got a couple bucks in my pocket. I moved out of my parents' home into the, near the city, was going out, spending a lot of unnecessary money, running around town. And of course, being, male in their mid-20s, I think they lead the category of discretionary spending or useless junk as you kind of see, here behind me. And I got myself into credit card trouble and spent a lot of my mid and late 20s recovering from that, which, to our conversation earlier, and I'm sure you've talked to many others, that really just cannibalizes the savings that you can do, whether it's towards retirement or, other objectives and initiatives, down payment on a house, etc. So that's it. I wish I could have been a little bit more original.
No, so let me see if I understand this right. Original, that everyone says they wish they would have saved more when they were younger, but I always find this challenge with younger people of experiences, right? The whole YOLO, you only live once versus saving money and finding that balance. I think that's hard. How do you, it's hard to look forward. But let me just clarify. Useless junk. Your bike's not useless junk. Your guitar's not useless junk. You probably have built a lot of experience. So there was probably a really good return on that spending, right?
The bikes, yes. The guitars, no, because I didn't actually have the time to learn how to play them. My kids got in the way of that. So it's, they're more wall art than active musical instruments these days.
Maybe you'll get a return on investment on your kids because
maybe they'll play them. Exactly.
All right. So you're on, we have you here today, not to talk about mountain biking, but we are going to talk about retirement plans. So, business owners, lean into this. This is for you. So all my business owner clients, I want you to lean into this. So here's some studies. I'm gonna throw some numbers out there. We'll talk about it. Then what we're really gonna want to do is unpack the Secure Act 2.0 that was recently passed December 29th. Probably half of y'all listening have no idea what the Secure Act 2.0, 2.0 meaning there was a 1.0 that happened back in 2019. 2019, yeah. And this is the second rendition of it. We'll get into it. But here's what, according to the National Institute of Retirement Security report, this is back in 2018, they said nearly 60% of Americans working lack access to a workplace retirement plan. So 6 out of 10 Americans do not have access to a workplace retirement plan. And there's some data that suggests that retirement benefits are central to employee loyalty. 40% of employees say their employee benefits or retirement benefits are a key reason to stay with an employer. And 87% of workers say a 401k is a must-have when looking for a new job. So we have 6 in 10 who don't have a workplace plan, and 87% of people looking for a job say it's a necessary part of them taking the job. So there is a big gap in the retirement planning space. Some would call it a crisis. And what we're starting to see in the industry, and I want to hear from your thoughts on this. We're starting to see some states actually mandating retirement plans, that businesses offer retirement plans to their employees. If not, there's a plan that they're forcing people into, forcing, I don't know if that's the correct word, maybe mandate. So before we hop into the Secure Act, talk to me a little bit about what's happening in the industry as it pertains to business owners in small business plans in these state mandated plans.
Absolutely. And I'll make sure not to go too deep. So stop me if I get off into the weeds. But I think you hit the nail on the head with, Secure 1.0 as it was back in 2019. I think that was the official national recognition that there's a retirement crisis. Since then, and even a little before that, we've seen states, it always starts out west with whether it was California, Washington, Oregon, whichever one was first. They've kind of led the way with the state mandate charge. And now if you look big picture, we're seeing 46 states in the nation discussing some type of retirement legislation, with 13 states taking it up. And I want to say 6 or 7 states already having plans active, if not more. We have a great resource page on that for business owners who are curious. But I know nothing down in Louisiana where you're at has been discussed too deeply. I think the closest state mandate that you guys have down there would be Mississippi has something coming on board that was discussed, nothing formally rolled out yet. But yeah, we're seeing it across the country because states want to help employers help their employees save and give them the tools to do that.
So talk to me real quick. What are the mechanics of this? So you have a state mandated. Now I know obviously this is not law across a lot of states, but generally how does it work? You work for a business. The company is going to have to offer a retirement plan to their employees. And if they don't, employees are going to have to participate involuntarily in a state-sponsored plan so that everyone is enrolled in some type of retirement. Is that how it works?
So the states are giving, typically what we're seeing, and not all states are the same, but I'd say the vast majority fit into a Roth IRA, employer organized plan or state sponsored plan is essentially what it boils down to. So if the employer doesn't want to provide some type of 401k, simple or other type of qualified retirement plan, the state's saying, hey, we have this program, most of them are called Secure Choice. Your employees will be able to contribute up to $6,000 per year, same as any other IRA, and it's going to be administered by you, the employer. In many cases, that comes with administrative headaches, payroll contributions. So for nominal costs and dependent on the, goals and objectives of the employer and, what they want to accomplish with that retirement plan, whether it's their own tax deductions and benefits, helping attract and retain talent, or just the overall financial health of themselves and their employees, that I think will help guide employers on where they want to go, whether it's the state plan, a full-on, safe harbor 401k, or somewhere in the middle with something.
So it sounds like what the states are doing, they're basically relieving these businesses of some of the administrative headaches of having a plan, saying, hey, we have something that your people can participate in. But, as a business owner, you have to make the decision of what's better, something that's state sponsored. or something that is employer sponsored, me as the business owner, as the plan sponsor, has more control of and can design it and custom design it for my business with more options and what the state's going to provide. Does that sound?
It is absolutely correct
Okay.
what you're saying there. And one other thought that I would have on top of that is, when small business owners are looking at, who controls what with their plans and what they're doing, I would say the vast majority of them don't want to see that control or whatever you want to refer to it as, to the government, because typically it's going to be more costly, less efficient. The technology is not going to be, as bleeding edge, or the benefits aren't going to be as great, but it may be a check the box solution that they don't have to think about. So again, it comes back to what do they want to accomplish in the goals of offering a retirement plan.
No business owner ever has said these words. I want the government telling me how to operate my business. And if you're listening and you're a business owner that has said those words, that you want the government operating your business, I would love to hear from you. All right. So we see this as a solution to part of the retirement crisis. And then here, last year, kind of the big talk last year was Secure 2.0. Secure 2.0 is going to happen. And gosh, surprisingly, there's a lot of consensus across party lines on this, a lot of agreement, which rarely ever happens in Washington. And then kind of quietly, unless you're in the industry, on December 29th, Biden signed the Secure Act 2.0 into law. And the idea really is to encourage retirement savings, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's go ahead and kind of take us on a tour here of Secure 2.0. What are some? I mean, I think there's like over 90 provisions of it, and we're not going to hit all 90. And some of them, we were kind of laughing before, joking about some of it. Seemed kind of silly, like that's kind of odd. But anyway, it's part. I mean, sure, some politician had some interest group that probably wanted that as part of it. But anyway, let's hit some of the highlights that are going to impact our business owner clients the most, that they're going to positively. Actually, as I looked at this, I think most of them are actually incredibly positive to encourage you as a business owner. If you do not have a plan, you're going to want to consider it, because they're making it really attractive for business owners to offer plans and help their employees save for retirement, plus help you save for retirement. Plus, if you're a business owner, don't you want happy employees? We've onboarded about 4 401ks in the past month, and we've done some enrollment meetings with the employees, and like, they're ecstatic. The business owners, I'm talking to you. Your employees are telling me how happy they are to be able to participate in this plan, and oftentimes it's really not that expensive for a business owner to implement these plans, and Secure 2.0 is going to make it even more attractive. So, all right, I'm going to stop talking. You're the expert, because you have AIF behind your name, which is accredited
investment fiduciary,
which is really helpful for people in the 401k space.
Yes. And I think before we jump into 2.0, I want to just make sure the business owner audience has, I guess, a baseline understanding of what Secure 1.0 brought with it, because much like 2.0, it was kind of passed with, a big must-pass bill at the end of the year in December of 2019. And I think the big takeaway for Secure 1.0 was it allowed business owners to get up to 50% of $15,000 in annual credits up to $5,000 or 50% of plan costs per year, up to $15,000 for the first 3 years of the plan. And it introduced a $500 credit for auto enroll. So those were the two big things that, us on our end as a 401k provider talked a lot about with 1.0.
So let me back up. So if there's any cost associated with administering the plan, business owner could receive a 50% credit up to $5,000 for the first 3 years. Does that include like plan document fees as well as the annual administrative fees? Okay.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. And so again, it was up to 50% or 15,000. Now with 2.0, it has enhanced that dollar for dollar tax credit up to a potential 100%. Still the $15,000 cap, but for a lot of these small businesses that are starting plans, because again, this qualifies for businesses 50 employees or less. That's the important thing to note. a lot of these benefits for Secure Act start to phase out once you get above 50 employees, because let's face it, that's where you start to get into the market of, or well, you'd like to think you'd get into the market of everyone offering a plan, but based on the stats you shared earlier of 60% of businesses under 100 employees not providing a retirement plan to their employees, you know, ultimately we'd like to see that a little higher, but hey, let's take what we can get for that under 50 crowd and you know, handle where it phases out after that. But again, a double in what you can get for a dollar tax credit, and everything beyond that is deductible.
So our first highlight. So if there's any cost, so this is a fantastic place to start. If you're a business owner and do not have a retirement plan in place, you are going to get a dollar for dollar credit up to the, let's call it the first $5,000 of costs to administer the plan, to put a plan in place, to have plan documents written up, to file the 5500s and all that for the first 3 years. So basically it's a $15,000, credit over three. That's huge.
Yeah. And on top of just the credits for administrative costs, I mean, it's a great tie into the second big benefit with Secure 2.0, and that's the tax credit for employer contributions. So you as an employer are actually being incentivized by the federal government to credit or to match your employees' 401k contributions. So they'll give you up to $1,000 tax credit per employee who is earning under $100,000. So again, for employees earning under $100,000, they will give you a $1,000 tax credit per employee.
Now, does that provision go into effect 2023?
I'd have to get some confirmation on that, but I believe that one is one of the ones that starts up a bit sooner.
Okay. So hold on. Okay. So I'm an employer, you're an employee. Is it for the match as well, or just like a profit sharing contribution, that credit? That's huge. So like I'm giving you $1,000. So obviously I'm deducting that as a business owner, plus I'm getting an additional credit on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's wild. Now, is that retroactive? We're not going backwards, but like if there's an existing plan in place, does that provision apply to existing plans, or is this just new plans? Is this just to incentivize new plans?
And now it's
do we even know yet?
I was going to say it's a bit unclear at this point where some of these provisions are going to start and stop, because like if you look at certain provisions like the mandatory auto enroll, for example, that was another provision of Secure Act, that phases in starting in 2025. All plans prior to that are grandfathered and aren't required to have auto enroll. So much like with this credit for matching contributions, while I know it will be for those first 3 years, I haven't seen anything that says it also qualifies for plans that are outside of that first 3 years of eligibility. So unless we see something that specifically states it is, I would assume not.
Okay. So the mandatory auto enroll, that's like a third provision of the Secure Act 2.0. And basically right now, the way it works is employees do not have to, or employers do not have to mandate or auto enroll their employees. It's an option. They can. And if they do elect that option today, as a result of 1.0, as you mentioned earlier, they are getting a credit, correct?
Correct. Yep. It's
that's not per employee. That's not per employee. That's just a credit for having the plan. So an additional $500 credit. Okay.
Yep. If you have auto enroll turned on, $500 tax credit.
Now, for clarification, because I've had this conversation with business owners before, like they kind of push back, like I don't want to force my people into it. Here's the thing about auto enroll. Doesn't mean they have to automatically participate. What it does is when they become eligible, they will automatically be enrolled in the plan, and they can elect to not participate in the plan and remove themselves from enrollment. Correct?
Okay. Correct. And I think that hits on a great point to touch on, is that it's not that employees don't want to contribute. It's typically that employees just don't sign up. You know, I'm sure you're going to have, a couple folks, at whatever company you're at, oh no, I'm all set, I don't want to, or, I don't have the money to. That's fine. Those are, there's going to be few and far between. But the vast majority of employees, if offered a retirement plan, they're going to participate. They just may have missed the email, not gone to the sign-up meeting. So on top of the requirement for auto-enroll, one of the other benefits of Secure 2.0 is the fact that as a business owner, to help entice your employees to come to these, sign-up meetings or get involved in the retirement plan, you can offer small incentives such as, gift cards or bonuses to help drive participation in the meeting, or the plan rather. And I think that's going to do a couple things for you as a business owner. One, it's going to help the overall health of your plan and drive your employees to save, which is, great for their futures. But two, it's also going to take away the risk, if your plan is not safe harbor, of you failing top heavy testing, because the more employees you have participating in the plan, the more as an owner you'll be able to defer, which, Erik, I know you're the expert on, and you can probably speak better to that, where you're in the trenches there every day.
Yeah, and also the more participation in your plan means more assets in your plan, which ultimately drives down the overall cost of the plan. So, I mean, there's a benefit to the employer, who most likely is going to have the bulk of the assets in the plan. The more participate, and this is a act in self-interest type of thing. The more employee participation you have, that will ultimately drive down the fees of the plan, which is good for you, and it's good for your employees as well. What else do we have? What else is something in Secure 2.0?
Well, the first few things we've hit on have been the benefits for the employer. And I think you just, touched on it there, where, you mentioned a lot of them are self-serving. There's actually a lot of benefits for the participant involved as well with Secure 2.0. One of them is increased access for part-time or hourly employees. Okay. So before, where employers were required to offer access to the retirement plan for employees that had either 1,000 hours or 3 years of 500 plus hours service, they dropped that 3-year threshold down to 2 years. So if you're, someone that's working part-time and, for whatever reason that may be, you're not going to be excluded from the retirement plan, especially if you're a longer term worker and it's, consistent. I know a lot of folks like golf courses, landscaping, seasonal type employers are excited about that one, to be able to provide plans to their employees. Yeah.
Huge, particularly in this labor market. I think anything you can offer as an employer to keep your staff motivated and connected to you, and build a culture of appreciation from your employees, I think is huge. Okay. What else do we have?
Well, along those same lines, for participants, we have required minimum distributions. So for those that aren't aware, once you hit age 72, you're required to take a set amount from your retirement accounts per year. Effective immediately with that change, it's been bumped to 73. And then within the next couple of years, it's slated to move up to 75, giving folks additional time to accrue their assets, and before they have to start divesting from them. A big reason for that was because people are living longer. There's, savings gap issues. So they certainly wanted to address that. Not only that, but along the same lines, they've decreased the taxes and penalties if you've missed your RMD and correct it quickly. So,
man, that is a brutal, the requirement. So once you reach a certain age, as Vinnie said, you have to start taking your money out. If you do not take your money out, this has to be maybe the most brutal penalty of anything in the retirement tax code. It's a 50% penalty of the amount, right?
It's just something to that effect.
It's so absurd.
Yeah, I remember reading it. It was either 50 or 25%, and it's, I think, going down to 10%. But yeah, they hit you with a hefty, I believe they consider it an excise tax, that they levy against you for missing that RMD. So all the more reason to work with a professional like Erik to make sure you don't miss that deadline, because it can certainly be a doozy.
Yeah, and again, that only applies to you if you are retiring, or if you're of that age. But I'm gonna tell you this: a lot of you listening are like, that doesn't impact me. I'm gonna tell you it does, because you have parents who are that age who may have amassed some wealth, and that will impact any inheritance that you possibly get in the future. So this is something that although you might be young, keep in mind that if you have parents of that age, that they can delay taking out those distributions if they're turning 72 and whatnot. So check with your CPA, your financial planner, your financial advisor on that provision. Encourage the your parents to take a look at that.
And
Cool.
then I did have one. Oh, sorry, I was
no.
I have one last one that some of the younger folks, or even those with hefty college debt, may be interested in as well. Secure 2.0 allows for employers to help folks pay back their student debt. The language around this one, depending on what you're reading and where, is still a bit murky. I've seen it some places that say if you can't contribute to a 401k because you're paying loans, then your employer can contribute. I've seen it other places where the employee has the option to elect their employer to contribute to their 401k. To their student loans instead of their 401k. I expect we're going to learn a lot more about this through the course of the year, as it's not slated to take effect until next year, 2024. But I think it's going to take some time from both a technology, regulatory, and IRS perspective to figure out where all the stars align and how this actually gets accomplished.
This is good government at work. Let's pass a bill and then figure out the implications later. We've been talking about this one for a long time. I've been having conversations off and on because this has been a provision that this might have been part of the conversation in 1.0 or some other legislation, is how can we, I say we as the industry, somehow encourage employers or employees with student debt to pay their debt and then somehow count whether the match could go towards the student loan. Or some of the things I read is that if I have student loan debt and I pay off my student loan debt, that could be construed as a contribution to my retirement plan to qualify for a match. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. But this is good news for student loan holders. As we're sitting here waiting to see what happens with debt forgiveness. Again, good government at work. Let's pass something and then figure out how to implement it later. But again, this is all good stuff for employers, all good stuff for savers. Another one, and I don't know the exact numbers here, but for accumulators out there, we have some of the contribution limits have been increased. So for those people over, did they drop it to 50 or is it still 55 for catch-up contributions? But the catch-up contributions are significantly higher.
Yes. So it's still 60, I believe.
It's 60, the new provision. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. It's still the same 59.5 or 60, but then increases it to, I want to say $10,000 or 150% of the catch-up amount, because they're going to now tie that to inflation. Okay. So it takes the catch-up contribution immediately up to, I think, $7,000. It might have said from 6. So there's increases, and then because we're seeing such high inflation, they're going to tie it to that to make sequential increases in the future as we continue to see that. So I think that's why they put the language of 10,000 or 150% in there, because they may expect things to continue into the future a bit.
Yeah. Man, good stuff. What is there anything else in there? I think we've covered a lot of like the most impactful parts of the plan, correct?
I think the only other one to address before you get into some of the real nitpicky stuff that folks may not have a whole lot of interest in is the emergency withdrawal provision, for participants and, folks that, I forget the stat, but a lot of folks wouldn't have the money to cover, a $500 emergency expense or something like that. I forget what the stats are, but to help folks that are in that situation where they're trying to choose between, do I create an emergency fund or do I save for retirement? It allows them to take or to withdraw $1,000 per year penalty free, and then they can pay that back over 3 years penalty free. So it's an interesting program to help folks with some emergency savings relief, and then some flexibility to help get that money back into their retirement account.
So this might be a little too specific of a question here. If someone takes $1,000 out under that provision, mm-hmm. penalty free, if it was a traditional contribution, you probably have to pay taxes, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. If you don't pay it back, are you ultimately penalized, or do you have to pay it back to avoid the penalty? Is it just give you access to it, but you have to put it back? Do we know yet? Maybe.
I think that's a great question for a CPA on a future show.
Yo, this is like, we're like 6-7 days into this. Okay. So give us, be graceful with us here. Okay. We're working on this here.
And it's nice too, because like, I say that partly in jest, because I mean, I think it would be great to get, a CPA on to talk about a lot of these provisions and what it means for a business owner's taxes, because I think that's a little bit out of, our purview in area as ERISA specialists. But to your point, it's funny how a lot of the stuff isn't laid out or spelled out, or maybe it is, but it's somewhere in that, 4,000 pages of legislation for us to maybe weed through and find that answer. So it'll be certainly interesting to see how both that provision and some of the others come to light with their processes over the coming months and year.
Yeah, let me make a quick public service announcement here. And call it a pitch to have a financial planner sitting at the table with you. Especially in the past 3 years, if you are a business owner, the amount of legislation that has been passed in the past 3 years that has a potential impact on you, between PPP money, emergency disaster loans through the SBC, through the small business SBA, Small Business Association. Is that what SBA? SBA, employee retention credits, Secure 19, Secure 2.0, CARES Act. There is so much stuff happening legislatively from a tax standpoint, from a law standpoint, that has impact on you. To have a competent CPA, to have a competent attorney, and to have a competent financial planner sitting at the table with you, you will make your money back most probably in spades. By having those people on your side, particularly the environment is not going to get less complicated. Taxes are not going to get less complicated. On the contrary, it's going to get more and more complicated. So if you're a business owner and you're listening and you're like, man, I need to do something for my business from an employee benefit standpoint, particularly a retirement planning standpoint, you may or may not have something on the books now. You may have something on the books now. You don't know if it's the right plan. Is a 401k better than a simple? Is a 401k better than a SEP? When do you do this versus that? Do you have a safe harbor 401k or not? Do you do profit sharing with your 401k or not? These are all things that we can guide you through over here. So we should do another show about how to select the right plan. But I think that we've hit on a lot right now for our business owner friends to chew on. So any closing thoughts for us, Vinnie?
I think as you look into 23 and we continue to see challenges, both, from an economic and business standpoint, as a business owner, I think you need to look at, what the challenges you're going to face as a business are and say, hey, what do I need to do to most importantly, keep my employees or my workforce happy and help to keep them successful, because the better off they are, the harder they're going to work for you. And the more that cycle will continue. So, I think if we continue to do better for our employees, they'll do better for us, and we'll have better outcomes in the future. So, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for joining us here. If you like what you're listening here, share it with someone, share it on social media, and we'd love to hear from you. So drop us a review wherever you listen to your podcast, and shoot us an email, info@plan-wisely.com. Y'all take care.